Okay, everyone. Well, welcome back. Um, so wonderful to see you all again, and welcome to our live streaming audience. Heard we had 55 people with us yesterday, which is just wonderful. So we continue on today. We're having a little shift in focus now. We'll be, after a short meditation alignment, we'll be focusing on how the soul and personality focus through our personality vehicles. So that will be what we'll be doing today. So anyway, now we're all set, and Michael, all
Okay, thank
ready.
you. Am I on? Yes, good, thank you. Well, how did you do? Did you see anything more in your lovely face in the mirror? Are you ready to enter the world of spiritual reading? Are you ready to be tested? I mean, that is a question for every disciple. But I'm serious about this. Orest, will you please come up? Now, those of you who know Orest, you be quiet. This is our friend Orest from the Christ College of Transmillennial Wisdom in Akaroa, and his wife Julia is here, and Lawson is one of the directors of that college. And Orest just arrived, and we're ready to have you identify what you see. He does have quite a face, doesn't he? We're ready to have you identify what you see. Okay, who said that? You said Taurus forehead and a Taurus neck. Okay, we won't commit yet, except that you're right. And what did you say? Scorpio eyebrows. Okay. Fifth ray eyebrows. Oh, he's got great eyebrows, doesn't he? Wait. Oh. Okay. He's got wavy hair. And what did you mean by look at his hair? Is there? Yep. Okay. Isn't there? Okay. Maybe a little bit. I mean, on the sides. Well, I usually with Aries and Sagittarius and Leo, it comes right up the front, see, instead of on the sides. This is the point, yes? All right?
Sag drop chin, possibly.
Possibly. It's hard to see with the beard, isn't it? But possibly. See? Cancerian quality to the nose, okay? Scorpio eyebrows. Okay. Well, your earlobes, any earlobes there? Earlobes are, now remember I told you there were 3 signs that involved earlobes, especially, and Taurus, Scorpio, and Leo, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
What are the smile lines on the eyes? Is that Ray too?
That's just maturity. Yes, it could be Ray too, indeed. Exactly. And you were saying? Anything else?
He has the wrinkles in the eye.
Yes, and they were saying those smile lines. Well, look, you've done very well, okay? Orest is a Taurus, Sun in Taurus, right? Feel good about that? All right.
Why did he come up holding his hands
Like that?
Like
Well, it's just probably fear. Oh, Tai Chi. All right, good.
Grounding.
Grounding.
Ready to ground, sink in, not float up too much.
See, that's Taurus. Okay, now Orest does have Cancer moon. Right? So you notice that here, right? Okay. But Orest does not have Scorpio, but the next best thing to it. A Mars-Pluto conjunction. Okay? And hence this.
Does he have this ray?
Well, I believe I believe he writes a lot using the third ray, but anybody can have the fifth ray if they just concentrate. Now, Orest is wearing a golden pendant. When people wear gold, what is that? Leo. Right. And does he look a little bit leonine to you? Yes. So he has Leo. That's nice too. That's green. That's beautiful. Handmade. Okay, see, the Taurus gets into it. Vulcan actually does things with their hands, right? And the eyebrows are amazing, right? And that's the Mars-Pluto conjunction. You don't have anything in Scorpio, do you? Or do you?
Since my sun is in one spot, my Earth must be in Scorpion. But
Okay,
that's-
okay, but yeah.
But that's nothing there.
Yeah, and then of course look at the eyes, you know, the overlids of the eyes, see? That happens with Taurus and Scorpio, right? So it's oftentimes easy to mistake the polarities one for another. But definitely, you know, Taurus, Leo, Cancer, there is quite a bit of Gemini, but it's hard to see with the beard. You know, it's hard to see with the beard. So I think you have identified it very well. You've done very well. So bravo for you, and thank you, Arrest. Thank you for arriving and bringing your face with you. Appreciate that. Okay. Okay, great. Now, we're going to have just a little alignment. By the way, do you have any questions from yesterday? That's on the list too. Are there any questions? Or have you really had quite enough of looking? Well, I don't know. You know, you all look different to me, I'll tell you. And spiritual reading, that's what we're into. And we discussed yesterday why we do that. We do that to get at the divine pattern which you have to express. That's the reason for the whole thing. It's not just a game, it actually is to get into the archetype, because your real nature is archetypal, and what you want to be able to do is express that on the outer plane as beautifully in the three lower worlds as possible. So it's best to know what it is. And whatever way we can find to get to it, to know what it is, we use whatever way we can. You know, it's not totally clear. Your name in heaven is not yet totally clear, right? Your name on the monadic plane is really not very clear yet, okay? But one day those names will be known, heard, participated in, identified with, and then it's all going to come through right on the physical plane the way it has to. And this is, we go up in order to come down. That's the purpose of the whole business. Okay, so last night you had a little assignment. Aha, I've seen this quizzical look. Yes, there was an assignment after all. Nobody listens, but there was. Okay, so you go home and you think about your soul nature and your personality nature, correct? And then you thought about your vehicles, your personality and all that. And then you began to wonder, you know, through which vehicle does my soul most focally express? Obviously, it's meant to express through all. And the personality is really meant to express through all your personality vehicles, of course, almost like a subray of every ray of your personality vehicles. But there is one through which it most expresses. So that's what we're going to do in our little alignment right now. We're going to have a chance to review that. Okay? We lined up there? Okay. Just a little alignment. So we've been building the group field. And are here together not simply as a collection of personalities, but we are also bringing our higher natures and expressing them and are conscious through them to a degree. And our goal is to take this consciousness, focus it as an observer, detached from the customary preoccupations of consciousness. That is, attending to what's happening physically, emotionally, mentally, and so forth. Every once in a while, we have to pull back from that and find the secret place in the so-called middle chamber. Now, let us be the observer of the personality from this more interior place. What is its nature as we see it? The particular way we manifest in this world as a collection of three elemental lives, physical, emotional, mental. What does that personality look like as if you were seeing it from an objective distance? You might arrive at some adjectives for the qualities or names of qualities that you see. And think about what it may be that is most focal in the personality, most important for this particular personality to express in this incarnation. The thing it is perhaps most likely to express as a major quality. Now, consider your life in the three worlds. Consider your integrating personality or integrated personality. Which of the three vehicles, through which of these, do you think that personality is most focally working? Obviously, it's going to express something through all three, of course, but through which one particularly do you think it is expressing, and why do you think so? remember, if the soul has a choice of two vehicles, it will always choose the one which has the highest frequency or polarization and leave to the personality something else. And if you were astrologically inclined, you might even say that the sun sign expresses through that same vehicle, even though it expresses through all. Now we have to view this situation in a balanced manner. So we will think of our soul qualities, but something the soul is really most meant to express in this particular incarnation, as far as we can understand that. And therefore, given that major quality of many qualities, through which vehicle of the personality, mind, emotions, body, etheric, physical, do you think your soul has chosen to work through principally, and why? Okay, maybe you're gathering an idea about that, so look at both the personality and the vehicle that you believe it may be working through principally, the soul and the vehicle you may believe it's working through principally. Is there a balance? Are there any problems? Are these two cooperating with each other? Are there elements of interference going on here? What do you see when you consider both? Well, our purpose will be to even out, balance these dual forms of expression, and perhaps, as we will see in some cases, as we study what Master DK says about this, there's occasionally the need to change focus in order to bring about a better expression of the agenda of the soul. It's a very delicate matter, rather subtle matter, and we at least have to enter into the study, even though it may take us some years to come to a clearer vision of how this is meant to be from the soul perspective and what is to be achieved by the fact certain polarizations and expressions exist. But we have to have a beginning somewhere. So, you will have a ray hypothesis. You'll combine that with some knowledge of esoteric astrology, at least the essentials, sun, moon, and ascendant. And you will have a sense of the vehicles of expression through which the personality and soul have chosen to express, and why that has been the case, and what is to be accomplished as a result of that choice. So just hold these ideas in your mind as we begin to study what Master DK has told certain of his disciples with regard to this form of expression. And we will close this little reflection with an Om. Good, and thank you. Now, do you think you learned anything from your reflection on this last night or from this brief alignment? Anybody would like to say briefly anything about any learnings that may have come to you as a result? Yeah. Oh, sorry. If one does this right, one has to use the, yeah, okay?
I've found this extremely fascinating and interesting, and I'm so glad you guys did this. And what I found is my ability to understand other people better and their facial expressions, because some people you look like, why do they look like that? Or, you know, and I'm like, oh, that's why. And it makes so much, you know, to see the relationships. Maybe this is a third-rate thing, you know, linking and relation, networking, whatever, but it's just opens up a whole new world when you're interacting with somebody or looking at somebody, and it also tears down so many judgments we might have. Oh, he has a big nose or this or that.
Okay. Well, and of course we want to be able to, thank you, we want to be able to combine this more subtle work today with the kind of thing that we did yesterday. Last night you were to reflect upon your points of polarization and expression. So did anything come out of that? Or perhaps I have a feeling that this is really an intuition that we should just see what Master DK says about this. And then we'll get into that, because that's what's going to be done later in the afternoon. You're going to have a chance to get into the groups with the Ray team and talk about what you've come up with and why. It's always the why that's very, very important. So when you get, you know, and then we'll learn from each other, because we we experience each other in these small groups. That's what we do. So let's take a look. I'm going to start out with just kind of a, we're moving towards an 11 o'clock break, and we have several of these people to discuss. So I think we'll manage quite well, maybe with questions and so forth, maybe about 20 minutes each, something like that. We'll see. Now I have to find, yes, did you have a question? I'm sorry, did I do something out of order? Yeah, but I have new things on this one. So if you can switch me over to mine. I thought about it because I just wanted to see what I would do. Thank you. Now, here is an Englishman. He's very first fellow mentioned in the Discipleship of the New Age, Volume 1 books. And his three keynotes are B, S, and D. PSD. I think, the names are not so important. I mean, I think when we're talking about Foster Bailey or Regina Keller, who was so active in the work there, everybody knows those names. And these people have done something significant in the world. And we'd like to know maybe who they are. But when it comes to so many of these other disciples, the name is not the issue. It's the quality that's the issue, obviously. So I looked at this, and this is the kind of thing that, Elena does so well, so I expect comments from her from time to time. This close analysis of these people, and we're not playing with a full deck of cards here, obviously. We don't know these people the way they were known by their intimates and group members and by the Tibetan Alice Bailey. We're having a bit of a mystery here to find the clues that we need. So here is the man BSD, and there were only two third-ray souls in the Tibetans group. And for the moment, I can't think of who the other one was. But if anybody comes up with that, just let me know. He led off he was a teacher apparently, and I intuit that as is the case with so many of these people, if they didn't have a second-ray soul, they had a second-ray spirit. LTSK. I must be too much like him. That's the problem, because I couldn't get it. LTSK, thank you. A very interesting type. Maybe one of us is doing that, I don't know. But this man seemed to be making more of a success of it than LTSK did, even though after this particular letter was written, he stopped. That was the end. And the Tibetan said he had reached his high water mark, and that was that. So being is the word here that is in italics, because, to be and to do, do, the first ray bees and the second and the third ray does. So you can see that this is a very third ray man, and being is sort of the antidote to overactivity, and that's why stillness is also recommended. And then, as must be the case with many in the group, detachment is recommended. It seems to be the most common word ever used. And you say, well, if he's the third-ray type, you won't have trouble with detachment, but he's got all that sixth ray. And DK talks about this very interesting, should be, balance between the two very mental rays, 3, 5, and 3, and the double 6 ray. It should be a balanced situation, but DK explains something about that. He says, you will remember, in general, that I gave you much time to the consideration of the rays which govern the various aspects and vehicles of each of the group members, because this letter is occurring rather late in the process, closer perhaps to 1940, something like that. A little, the late 30s anyway. And I trust that, first he gave them their soul and personality ray. Then he gave them their 3 vehicles only after that, and then he gave them the focus of those vehicles. And I trust that a careful analysis of what I said has enabled each of you to know yourselves and to understand your problems more truly and fully. So practical, isn't it? Know yourself, understand your problems, correct the problems, and be a better, more effective server and have better consciousness. Today I seek to indicate the vehicles of force through which the 2 major rays are predominantly focused, reminding you that our task is to relate 2 energies and 3 forces. I guess what he's talking about here is that the soul energy is, in fact, an energy, and so is personality, an energy. And we're talking about the effect of energy upon force. The rays of the 3 lower vehicles are considered relatively forces compared with 2 higher energies. Other times he talks about the monad and the soul as if they were the only energies and all the rest were forces. He changes his perspective. Okay, to relate 2 energies and 3 forces in such a manner that you become, in fact, a divine manifestation. That's the objective for all of us here. Let me here be precise. This is good for a person with a 5th ray mind, and he gave this person percentages of the degree to which his chakras were open or not open. And his ajna center, which is ruled by the 5th ray, was only open 15%. So he was undertaking ajna cultivation with this particular man, and above all, he wanted him to become a true psychic, which was not the case for others who already had that psychic tendency. So now the specifics about this. First, your egoic or soul ray equivalent focuses itself in and through your 5th ray mental body. Now that seems rather natural because 3 and 5 go together, and you would say, well, it's the 3rd ray soul, so naturally, you know, it's got to focus in that 5th ray mind or maybe the 3rd ray brain because it's along the same ray line. But don't be misled because it's not always that way. Sometimes a soft line focuses through a hard line personality vehicle and vice versa. A hard line soul focuses through a soft line. So, and you'll see what he wants him to do. So, 5th ray mental body, and this, as I told you in an earlier instruction, has given you your, there's the word, defined, it's a 5th ray word, defined mental focus. 3rd ray soul, 5th ray mental body, and if you think about it, they're both on the same level. 3 of the rays are on the same level, and here's what I mean. The ray of the soul is on the level of the higher mental plane. The ray of the personality is on the level of the mental plane, 4th level. The ray of the mental body is on the level of the mental plane. All of them are on the same level. In other words, if you consider the mental plane as a unity, they all have a mental focus, leaving 2 rays in the astral and physical. So it's very natural that 3 would focus through 5. And this gives you your defined mental focus, your critical attitude, because these are 2 of the most critical rays, the 3rd and the 5th, highly discriminative, and your isolation, relatively speaking, because the 5th ray can be non-magnetic. And it is directly related to the 1st ray of isolation. In other words, 5th ray types do resolve upon the 1st ray eventually, and maybe under special dispensation upon the 3rd. But that's what he gives us. 5 goes to 1. And ray 1, the ray of isolation, and ray 5 rules the law of cleavage, and cleavage means separation, isolation, okay? It is this combination which has always enabled you to rationalize yourself into a confidence in the rightness of your decisions and into a surety that your particular life choices and your preferred circumstances are correct, that's the 5th ray word, and justified. We don't know the astrology of this man, although maybe there are some thoughts about it that some of us have worked on earlier. So anyway, he's telling himself a story. It's a very reasonable story. He comes to believe it, then he's sure of it, and that's that. This energy and force are reinforced also by the force of your physical body, which gives you a 3rd ray brain. And when you're talking about the physical ray, it's primarily the ray of the brain. So it's, it's about how the brain is processing information and all the things that it does. It does that according to a certain way of motion, a certain method of motion, which is defined by the ray. So, that's the most important thing. It's the brain. And the soul, mind, brain alignment is really what we try to achieve, independent of the astral body. And this man should be set up beautifully for that. Soul 3, mind 5, brain 3. All on the same line. Soul, mind, brain ought to be really easy. But maybe there's more to it. Now he gets into the personality. Second, your personality ray is focused in your astral body. Well, it's only, it really looks obvious in a way, 6 to 6. So it seems it should be obvious. It might not be, but it is probable. The rays 3, 5, and 6 are your controlling factors. In fact, that's all he's got. 3, 5, and 6. Except for his monadic ray, which subtly seems to pervade the whole thing. Later you see that, or earlier in the discussions. And it seems that he is, after all, a teacher, and that he has to work with the will quality, the dynamic quality of love, a big hint. The dynamic quality of love, the word dynamic takes you to the monad immediately. The quality of love suggests the second ray. So probably behind it all, DK is trying to orient him towards that particular ray. But he never spells it out. Only in 2 cases does he spell out the monadic ray precisely. For one person with a ray 1 monad and another person with a ray 2 monad, only in those 2 cases. But he gives loads of hints, dropping, along the path to feed the birds, and we could intuit what he means. He never leaves you without a hint. Okay, this gives you devotion, ray 6, and mental control, ray 3 and 5. And it should give you real balance, that's the point, but he keeps on using that word balance and decision, so you kind of wonder, is Libra involved here? This should give you real balance, but unfortunately, it does not. Because, well, DK was a master psychologist, and he could see into all of these little maladjustments that we're carrying around with us, and which are preventing us from really making the real progress. He oftentimes tells us the next little step seems like a small step, but for you it's really a big step. In other words, and Master Mori is saying the smallest grain of sand can stop the largest wheel. So oftentimes it's some little thing we haven't taken care of. It just seems trivial, but it's stopping the whole caravan, okay? So it doesn't really give you balance because the mind aspect is unduly emphasized, and you are afraid of devotion. Now, this is interesting. So here, you know what the attitude is in our groups, devotion, oh, that's 6th ray, that's astral, and all the rest. And basically, DK is trying to cultivate this in this man. He says, you're just too mental, 353, and afraid of letting these other qualities express, which he wants, and the man experienced, by the way, brain fatigue. He began his work with DK under the influence of brain fatigue. There's a difference between that and mind fatigue. So, DK was very careful about how he handled him. Yet it is, you're afraid of devotion, and here comes the punchline, yet it is your devotion, my brother, which has brought you to us and not your mental ability. So this is a very corrective statement, isn't it? It is your devotion which has led you steadily all these years and produced your service in the world. To what have you been devoted? That is an important question. This is an important question for you to answer to your soul, before the bar of your soul, before the judgment of your soul. So DK is giving him something to ponder right here. Just a little more. I'm just trying to kind of set the pattern of what we're going to be doing. We won't be taking as long necessarily for all of these. We have a number of them. But just to give you the idea of what we're trying to do here and how it might relate to your own process. I ask myself, DK says, anew, how can I convey to this disciple the nature of his problem? I will put it in this form. Your egoic energy, focused in your mind, right, is at the service of your personality and of the work which you are endeavoring to do in the particular field wherein you are forcing yourself to remain. A lot of people don't want to move on, and we all know that six-ray types are very attached to things, and one of his words is detachment. So obviously, he's continuing with something. The DK thought it would be better for him to move on to something new. And this is the case with some disciples. Then as a result, they just don't move. So the mind is put at the disposal of this personality force, which is riveted on something which may no longer be useful. The particular field wherein you are forcing yourself to remain, some Mars activity there. It should be the other way around, and the personality, with all its unified powers, 6-6, very unified, should be at the service of the soul. All the forces of your lower nature should be at the disposal of the higher self. So the higher self, from a third-ray perspective, should be the master of the sixth ray, the third ray, the sixth ray, the fifth ray, and the third ray. All the forces of your lower nature should be at the disposal of the higher self, working through an illumined mind and a sensitive brain. The fifth ray has a great power for illumination. It's the most luminous ray that exists. And the ray lord on the fifth ray has the greatest luminosity of any of them, and is the most highly developed of any of them. So hence the luminosity. And all of this, these forces should work through an illumined mind and a sensitive brain, soul sensitive, 3 to 3. Ponder on this. The energy of the intelligence and two intelligent forces, the soul and the mind, and the physical nature, serve your devoted personality. So the tail is wagging the dog, okay? And the proper end and objective is not in mind. Personality objectives are in mind, and soul forces are being used to serve those personality devotions. You should reverse this, my brother, and let the intelligent soul, that's what he is, third ray, intelligent soul, control your devoted personality. There lies your problem. So he's like, put the finger right on the problem. In this balance of forces, friction of forces, a reversal of something that should be another way around, and maybe you have the same thing. Something, somewhere. You know, in other words, you have a problem, believe me. I'm telling you, okay? We all have a problem. There's a problem, otherwise we wouldn't be where we are. Okay, so we have to solve these problems in order to move as we should. When you're a fourth degree initiate, you no longer have this particular problem. You'll be presented with a whole new series of problems, and they will be fun too. Okay. The need of every disciple is ever to develop a closer and more direct alignment between soul and personality, of course, and that is therefore your problem. Even if it seems to you an elementary problem, because obviously he's got mental pride. Third ray, you know. So he said, what's that? You know, soul and personality. I know all about that, about it. All right. So what you need to do is to focus the energy of your, now here comes the change of focus. That doesn't mean that every one of us needs to have a change of focus, okay? Not necessarily. Maybe we just do our present focus better, that's all. But this man needs a change of focus, as a number of the disciples did. What you need to do is focus the energy of your soul in your sixth ray astral body. 3 into 6. They are related, of course. Instead of in your mind. Now that's a real change of pace, isn't it? And so that intelligent love, because the astral body carries love, will be your outstanding characteristic. And the second ray monad, I think, will help. This shift will do certain things for you and in you. And this is the question of our willingness to do what we're supposed to do. It will create a temporary upheaval in your life. Therefore, naturally affect your solar plexus, producing a period of real difficulty. So right there, you know, a lot of people say, I'm not interested. But these are disciples, and they had better be interested because they've made certain pledges and accepted. Number 2, it will transfer the energy of the soul and the force of the mind into the realm of the emotions, because the 3 will take the 5 along with it. I suppose he'll be much more intelligent about his emotions and not just denying them. Into the realm of the emotions and of sensitive feeling response. He doesn't have that. Thereby greatly increasing your usefulness, because you've got to reach people after all, don't you? But also increasing for you, and I love this quote, the dire pain of life itself. The dire pain of life itself, increasing for you what most people want to run away from, the dire pain of life itself. This is a pain with which all disciples must learn to live, and from which all disciples must inevitably suffer. Welcome to the world of discipleship, you know. You can understand why a lot of people want to remain as aspirants, all right? It will stimulate your brain cells and will swing into activity, you know, the sensitive brain, many hitherto dormant cells. He wants to make this man a psychic. He's the only one that was being trained specifically in this way, thus making you capable of increased service of a different nature to that which you are now occupied. Would you say DK is giving me a little hint? Get out of what you're now occupied with and widen it out and do something more useful? That's for him to figure out, of course, what it is. But DK has pretty well said, you're suffering from brain fatigue and your present line of effort in the world has outlived its usefulness. That's what he's saying. It will lead you to inquire if your present field of service is for you a legitimate one, another Libran statement, legitimate, law. So he said law, legitimate, balance, and whatever. There was another word, choice, decision. 3 Libran words right away. You begin to wonder, okay. It will lead you to inquire if your present field of service is for you a legitimate one, or if it is, what you must do to change the nature of the seed which must therein be sown. Those are the thoughts and ideas that he's dropping in his field of service. Maybe they have to be more potent or of another nature. You will know to what I refer without my further elaborating. He's so good about this, because some things are private, and he just says what needs to be said to the disciple, and the other members of the group who read the whole, everything was sent to everybody, they don't know, and they keep their thoughts off of it, and therefore don't interfere. Such is your problem. How shall we change your egoic focus and at the same time fuse more closely your 2 major rays, the 3 and the 6, so that the personality is subordinated to your soul, which we all have to do, and you have to ask yourself, is your personality subordinated to the soul, or does it break out now and then and take the leading position? To aid in this specific, the specific meditation to be followed, ... and then note. The disciple is no longer working with the Tibetan master who makes the following comment about him. He has reached his high water mark for this life. Further instruction is not necessary. He has enough upon which to work. And of course, you know, DK always gave you enough. He didn't abandon anyone. There were some disciples that couldn't go on and do further things, but he had given them enough. And then when the whole group couldn't go on and do further things, he had given them enough as well for the rest of their life. So you see how important this can be. Now, obviously, this man has an opportunity. Something's pointed out to him. Do this. How strong a hint does he need? These are strong hints. But apparently he didn't follow these hints, I would say. Okay, you get the idea? Are there any questions about this? Yes. Okay, let's make sure, let's find a way to get this to you so that there will be audibility.
I was just curious if we knew the occupation of this disciple.
He was a teacher, and I think involved in, I got the feeling, some kind of theosophy. I got the feeling about that. You know, the Theosophical Society had a lot of Ray 3, you know how they did it, and a lot of Ray 6. He says, very full of devotees, you know. Okay, any other questions? Comments, thoughts? Okay, yes.
I'd like your comment on you saying he did not take the advice. And we heard about the woman who was also the disciple and did not take the advice. From the group that particular group, how many actually took the advice? Do we know? And why do you think DK spent so much time with people who do not take his advice?
Well, you know, he certainly didn't know at the beginning who would and who would not, because we have the factor of free will. He did say, many of you have discovered that you have a problem and that it's much deeper than you suspected. Words to that effect. So, you know, anything could happen. It could work out very, very well, and I think sometimes he was a little disappointed, you know, given a master's attention in such a concentrated manner, that people didn't do more with it. He said, look, some of you are not even doing your meditations, you're not doing your reports, you're not doing what I ask. It's your choice. And then he analyzed this in discipleship too, and they fell away and fell away and fell away until only a few very dedicated ones remained. But still he gave them the opportunity, and you almost always must do that because he saw the potential within them. Keith, would you like to say something about that?
Apparently, it's not on.
It is, should be. There it
It's
is.
on, yeah.
Just get close to it.
Okay. Apparently, 7 out of all the disciples, only 7 really fulfilled what he wanted in terms of group understanding. But everyone made much progress. A lot of them made personal progress, but not necessarily understood the group idea that he was trying to have them respond to. So in many cases, some fell away, like Michael said, and became, what he said, a normal person again. What a dread. How can you do that? A muggle after being a magical person. But they all, the ones we knew, you could tell something had happened to them, couldn't you? Mm-hmm. And so they did make special progress. Now, why did he spend so much time with them? There were all kinds of things involved, karmic things and things. He'd been watching them over a few hundred years of their orientation of lives and things like that. And so because they're in his ashram, I think he understood, what he was doing was so epochal, really, in a sense, because of the kind of teaching. You don't find that anywhere else. There's nothing in the world like that that's available where you get that intense, intimate training on. It's a kind of precursor for the new schools that will come in a few hundred years, where a teacher is able to see into the intimate parts of each of his those he's responsible for, and it's very intimate, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so intimate. I mean, we can't do that. There's no way. We can see into all those intricacies and then deal with them on that level and also as a group level. So there's the personal training to bring them up to the group level, really, which is what his idea is. Could say a lot more, but that's a whole other, that'd be a week.
Yeah, that's true. Keith has a little bit of Gemini, but we're grateful because he probably knows more about it than anybody. So,
I have a
yes,
question.
sweetie.
So in his case, what would you imagine it would look like if he were to follow this instruction to take the energy of the soul and begin to concentrate on the astral body? I mean, obviously, it would be in his meditation. It would be, you said he was
His work,
developing
his
psychic
work.
sensitivity, but,
Yes.
can you flesh that out a little as you would imagine? Like if he were to say, okay, I'm going to take this on,
I think what would he do?
in a daily way, what does that look, what would
Well,
that
that's something we're going to try to do. We're going to have some hypothetical ray formulas, and we'll talk about how different focuses would mean different things,
Right.
and also in your own life. But obviously, he was so riveted with his six-ray astral body, and his personality were directing everything into that thing that he was doing, and he was not opening to wider possibilities and greater sensitivity and more rapport, and ending his isolation, because his soul is not an isolated factor.
So it's sort of 1,000 choices, like every moment that he finds himself isolating. Every moment he finds himself in that kind of penetration. It's not just.
It's not just that thing in the outer world. I imagine the heart energy would become involved because the solar plexus was really open for this man in some way, but he denied it. He didn't understand his own sensitivity. He was so much in his mind that he closed that off. So I think that would begin to open up. His rapport with others would open up. His ability to communicate with them in a new way would open up, and it would be more integrated into his environment. These are things that I suspect would be happening. But the thing is, what would happen in your own case if that occurred and you were making various changes? Yes, PL.
I wanted to say that I was impressed reading some of the information on the other disciples, how he would say when they passed that they continued their work with the ashram on the inner sides.
Yes.
And also, somewhere else it stated in one of the books that we start off our next life with the progress that we made this life. So it's like Hercules. For every single one of these disciples who failed, on their inner side as between lives, they can get a good perspective on that, and then they will start right back where they left off
Right.
the last
Right.
time. So it's not like they lost the opportunity.
No. And remember, his project is supposed to last some 275 years, of which 200 years remain, the seed group project that they were organized in. So, no, it's not a loss for them, but in terms of the group opportunity, it could have been more fully developed, and it will be, because there's nothing that teaches like failure. He talks about learning the lessons of failure, doesn't he? So Alice Bailey said, I just have this feeling that I've failed the masters, whatever, and then she gives a super application that succeeds. HPB failed as Cagliostro and damaged Master M's ashram, and she comes back blazing and starts the whole Theosophical movement. So I recommend failure to you, and learning. Well, sometimes you just can't help it, and learning the lessons of failure. Okay, go ahead, Dorothy.
I just wanted to make a comment about what Keith said about the intimate help that he gave all his disciples. I don't think that's limited to just him. I think it comes to everybody, these little hints now and then. If you follow them, the more often you feel you get them.
Well, yes.
So as you're making progress, you keep getting the help you need.
You do. He teaches you how to work with hints, but he says the modern disciple has to go over the mass of material and extract his or her own hints, which sort of jump off the page. And DK was being so tremendously specific with these disciples. You kind of wonder how in the world he had the time to do that. That's like a special sacrifice.
I'm not talking about the pages, I'm talking about maybe what happens in meditation.
Yes, but this is a master giving you specific, direct, verbal statements. So what happens in meditation from your own soul or whatever, or if you make a contact with a master, a word is sufficient. These were letter after letter after letter. It was unusual, But of course, there are many hints for us, of course. But now our timing requires that we begin the process with other disciples. And so remain alert, see how it works, and see how it might apply to you, and how, by the end of this day, maybe you'll have a sense of how these things are working through your vehicles, and also what adjustments might have to be made. All right, so let's switch over to the other computer. Yes, there it is.
Heidi, I'm going to be reading from my notes, so if you could scroll along as, okay, sound. Okay, before we get started, we just want to point out the legend that we have here in terms of highlights and colors, so you'll know why there's so many colors. The yellow is supposed to be gold and stands for anywhere that DK contacted the idea of the soul and where it's working. So we've kind of highlighted that in gold and yellow. The green will represent the personality. So again, it'll be wherever the personality is working through a particular vehicle. And the turquoise blue is personal comments to keep us aware of what we want to share with you. Okay? Now, the names, as has been said, are not important. They are on our documents, and I didn't remove them, so they're there. But what is important is to see the letters that were offered, or the words that were associated with the letters that were offered to the disciples. In this particular case, we have J, W, and KP, which stand for joy, wisdom, and knowledge of the plan. And he obviously was given these words or these qualities to cultivate because he needed them in his life. If we look at the rays that this man had, he had a first ray soul with a second ray personality. Now the three vehicles are mental, 4, 2 for the astral, and 7 for the physical vehicle. This will play an important part in the advice or in the comments that DK says about this man. So, as we read, he says, in reference to the work of fusion at which you must arrive in connection with your bodily forces and your soul energy, I would call your attention to the fact that your soul energy is focused in your physical equipment. Now, isn't that an interesting thing for us to think about, that our physical equipment goes together here with soul, thus bringing together the energy of your soul and the force of your seventh ray brain. Now, I find this whole passage really, really a wonderful teaching thing for all of us. It has been pointed out by some of us here, Michael and so on, how important it is to know the ray of the physical form, because that indicates to us the ray of the brain. And without the brain, how is our information going to, and our knowledge going to be transmitted to us? So here he says, again, that the soul and the physical equipment go together, and the seventh ray brain is a very important thing here. Now, this man was told that his vitality, his energy was low. And DK told him that if he meditated every morning, he would experience joy, which is one of the things he's cultivating. And I have it in my notes that it's italicized, which means it's the most important thing in this man's life that he needs to work on. So he would experience joy, and the body then would take care of itself. Let's remember, low vitality, low energy. There is consequently a direct alignment between soul and brain, and this must be deepened, understood, and utilized. Soul in this case is first ray. The brain in this case is seventh ray. Your personality energy, which is the second ray, is focused in your fourth ray mind. So in this particular case, I'm sure you're recognizing that there's resonance with the rays. The soft rays seem to be resonating together, and the hard rays seem to be resonating together. The soul being a hard ray, the physical form being a hard ray, they are kind of resonating together. The personality being on the soft line, and the mind being on the soft line. This leaves your astral body as a unity by itself from our standpoint of consideration. And this is, in your case, as it should be. You have a powerful astral body of sufficiently poised control to proceed with the task and the solution of personal relationships without the undue pressure of personal reactions. So since we have 3 vehicles of the personality, and we're only talking about personality where it's focused and the soul where it's focused, there's obviously going to be one of the vehicles that isn't getting the attention. In this case, it is his astral body. Someday, a study will be made of the fact that practically all reactions are of an astral or emotional nature, except the reactions of the physical mechanism to the outer tangible environment. But don't we all know that it's our astrality that is the most reactive? This is not yet sufficiently noted by orthodox psychology. The reactions of the personality to the soul and of the astral body to the subjective life are of vital interest to the esotericist, to the subjective life, to the inner life. So, here we have some color-coded comments that might already be repeated in the original document that he gave, or the original document that we have up there. So, your second ray astral body greatly facilitates your work, giving you understanding and harmlessness. Your emotions, thus, do not interfere with your judgment and your decisions. So we see here that the kama manasic tendency is not that strong in the man, because there seems to be separation. But the combination of a fourth ray mental body and a second ray emotional vehicle requires careful watching so as to preserve the first ray balance as you grow older and tendencies crystallize into habits. The only way to do this is to deepen and establish soul contact, which, although of the first ray, is, as you will remember, the first subray of the second ray. Everything is a subray of the second ray because we're in a second ray solar system. Okay, we move on to the mental body here. Your mental body, my brother, is upon the fourth ray of harmony through conflict. Hence your power to harmonize, to unify, and to comprehend. At the same time, this indicating soul purpose. It took a fourth ray mental nature with its love of harmony through conflict to handle the particular task which your soul assigned and the undertaking upon which you are engaged in the aiding of the plan. Is there anything you want to add about this man's life?
Of course, this was Alice Bailey's husband, and she was so grateful to him for handling the legal issues, the practical issues, the financial issues of the Lucis Trust. And obviously, he was surrounded by a lot of second-ray souls. He needed that fourth ray of harmony through conflict. That was the task that was the outer task, at least, that he was assigned. So the fourth ray mental nature really helped in that particular aspect.
Right. As you've already guessed, your physical body is on the seventh ray, hence your Masonic opportunity and your ability to organize and to rule. I would remind you all that when the statement is made that the physical body is upon the seventh ray, it means that the atoms of the brain in particular are colored and motivated by the seventh ray energy. You see how he's re-emphasizing that very same thing to us, how important it is to know the ray of the physical form because it gives us the ray of the brain. So it is with all the rays upon which a physical vehicle may be found. This provides a definite opportunity to those so constituted at this time in connection with the seventh ray, as it is coming into influence so rapidly. At the same time, it provides a problem, that unending problem of the balancing of forces, which is the major task of the initiate or of those in training for initiation. Viewing you, therefore, as a complete unit, your rays, and wouldn't it be wonderful if we were given our rays? So this is just going over again what his rays are. His ray of the soul is will and power, it's the first ray. The personality is the second ray. The mind here is the fourth ray. His astral body is the second ray. And the ray of the physical is the seventh ray. Now, it would be also wonderful if this formula that we see in this particular instance worked out for us. It would be really, really good if we could say, all right, there's resonance between the hard rays, so therefore, if I have a hard ray on my soul, it must be working out through one of the hard rays in my, in my form or my vehicles. If there's a soft rays, maybe there's a connection there. But you know what? He blows that out of the water with the next one. Do I continue, or do we want to talk about this?
Well, no, you're fine. And I was just thinking, there's no problem being given your raise. There's 100 people out there who will be happy to give you your raise. Just don't listen to them. That's all. Make sure that you intuitively and rationally arrive at this yourself, no matter what hints other people may give you and the feedback.
Okay, so moving along to SSP. This is the only way you're going to know these disciples as you read the books. There's no name. So this is the brother of Dale Carnegie, and his rays were second ray soul, fifth ray personality, fourth ray on the mind, sixth ray on the astral, and third ray on the physical form. And his words or his qualities of cultivation are serenity, simplicity, which is italicized, and poise. So you can see where the leaning is. All of these speak of something very similar: serenity, simplicity, and poise. In connection, he says to him, with your personality rays, I would point out that the ray of your mental body is that of the fourth, which facilitates your task of responding to the light of the soul, for it gives you a mind nature which can react easily to your second ray soul, for it is on the same line of force. Great, right? Mm-hmm. At the same time, it makes your mind a focal point for your soul force, which is the fifth ray, the soul force in your fifth ray personality, which is itself a mental ray. So the mind is a focal point, the mind being fourth ray, is a focal point of the soul force in your fifth ray personality. So where's the connection here? Is it going mind to personality? Is it going soul to personality? How do you read that? Mm-hmm.
Looks like a restatement of what he said, but you know, it's 2 to 4, but it's within a fifth ray personality. Right. He's calling our attention to that.
Right. Okay. So for him, the building of the antikarana should constitute for you not a problem. The main reason lies in your fifth ray personality, wherein the emphasis is laid upon the critical, analytical mind. See, I find this so interesting. Even though his mind is a fourth ray mind, and fourth ray is not the ray that criticizes, the fifth ray, actually, all the hard rays tend to be a little critical. The fifth ray is the ray that tends to separate, right, and to see that which is here and there and apart. So it is the fifth ray personality that causes him to be critical and analytical in the mind, which is fourth ray. So there's no resonance there. And to argue, fourth ray, with yourself and with circumstances. It also lies in your third ray physical body, which again, upon the mental line, increases the activity of the third ray. Why? Because it's the third ray brain here, right, of your critical personality. So there we see one of the reasons why a fourth ray mind can be critical, because he's got a third ray brain. Interesting. Well, I just said that. It is yourself, however, whom you mainly criticize. This is the internal talk we all do to ourselves. We all talk within ourselves. And so he's very hard on himself, obviously. So this is mainly yourself that you criticize. But this can be as wrong and as unnecessary as criticizing others. If you will let your soul influence your personality more definitely, working through your fourth ray mind and your sixth ray astral body, studying and utilizing these lines of least resistance, you will make rapid progress towards that goal that you have set yourself in this life, the integration of soul and personality. Well, we're all working, right, on that. So this can apply to all of us. But it's just interesting to see, well, it was for me, to see how a fourth ray mind can be critical. To me, this was a really good example how we cannot take anything for granted. Ray 2 soul, working through a fourth ray mind and a sixth ray astral. So in this area, we see resonance, all soft line. Fifth ray personality, working through a third ray brain. So he asks him, what is your major difficulty? For you're not satisfied yourself with your own progress, and rightly so. I've said that I would deal with the rays of the personality vehicles during the coming instructions so that you can realize your individual problem more easily and therefore more quickly fit yourself for service. As you know, your personality ray is the fifth, and your mental ray is the fourth, and the ray of your physical body is the third. These are the rays of concrete knowledge, harmony through conflict, wrought out therefore in your case in the mind nature and active intelligence, which is the third. It will be apparent to you then, if you think clearly, why your physical vehicle is such a good response apparatus to mental impression, and why your life problem is tied in with the physical plane location or environment where your personality finds itself. Your problems come far more from your circumstances and your environment than from within yourself. So basically, he's reiterating what we've already kind of touched upon here. If this is so, my brother, is this not so, my brother? This is not so usual a condition as might appear. You are singularly free from inner complexes, but also singularly responsive to outer circumstances. Ponder on this, because it will make your way of life more clear and will greatly facilitate your progress on the way. And basically, we go on to a similar kind of instructions that he gives them. The ray of the mind, the fourth, is controlling the ray of the personality. So his mind is controlling his personality. And that means that the power to react to soul illumination is yours. The goal of your meditation should be light. I would point out, however, that in your case, it is one of quiet reflection and inner recollection, preserved at all times. This permits you to be a channel for the inflow of light to your personality and through your personality to your environment. Remember the three key words that were the words he needed to cultivate? They all had to do with something soft, right? With stillness, with serenity. Why? Because of that fifth ray personality and the third ray brain, right? That softness is something this man needed to cultivate. In connection with your personality rays, I would point out that the ray of your mental body is that of the fourth, which facilitates your task of responding to the light of the soul, for it gives you a mind nature which can react easily to your second ray soul, for it is on the same line of force. At the same time, it makes your mind a focal point for soul force in your fifth ray personality. Well, we read that earlier, which is itself a mental ray. The building of the antikarana, again, he says, it will constitute not a problem for you. Now he talks a little bit more about the astral body is on the sixth ray. This gives you a one-pointed attitude to life, and primarily, in your case, to the things of the spiritual world. You are definitely on your way, and with a quite satisfactory simplicity are going forward. This is what he's cultivating, simplicity. This ray also enables you to make a fairly facile soul contact should you so desire. So, again, he asks him, what is your major problem? You are not satisfied. And he repeats what he said earlier, which, if you'd like, we can reread it. That the main reason lies in your fifth ray personality, wherein the emphasis is laid upon the critical, analytical mind. This leads you to watch and criticize and to argue with yourself and with circumstances. It also lies in your third ray physical body, which we've talked already about, which again is on the mental line, and it increases the activity of the critical personality. So we see how the dichotomy that this man was in. He needed to work on the softer lines because he had all this activity, this criticism going on within himself, and yet he had all the soft rays there, and he was asked to work with those qualities of poise and serenity and whatever that third one was. Joy, maybe. No, maybe not. Simplicity, thank you.
Poise.
Poise.
This man was a Scorpio, and he had Capricorn rising. And he had the moon in Libra, and his Mercury was in fourth ray Scorpio. Interesting enough. Of course, it's the long discussion about whether you can look at the chart and get the rays. DK gives us another method. He says basically study the person, then get the rays, then go to the chart. He gives us, that's the safest method at the moment. But it is interesting, that Mercury is found in fourth ray Scorpio, and that the hard quality of Capricorn is there. And then all these things about poise, his moon is in, well, Elena has to work on it a bit more, I think, but the moon is in the last degree of Libra. So there are issues about, do you think Scorpio? Haven't done this one yet, no. Yeah, anyway, combining these things, that's good. Are there any thoughts about this? We have 2 more to do before 11 o'clock. We're okay. Any questions? Yes. Yes. Microphone. 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 Play the role of Mercury here. Okay.
Quick observation that it's revelatory for me that the soul, it doesn't just work straight down, from soul to personality to the mind, that it takes, in a sense, the path of least resistance, which in this case moves from 2 to 4,
Yes.
and then back up, in a sense. I'm not sure there really is an up with this, but then to be able to influence that stuckness of the 5th, and make it a conditioning potency for the 4th.
Yes,
Yeah.
interesting. And there was another person too, wasn't there, with a sort of a 2-5, soul personality and also 4th ray mind. This is an interesting combination, and you can tell how much balancing there could be using this. This man also was one of those who did not continue. He just, I don't know what it was said about him, but it wasn't through any real fault of his. It's not that he disobeyed his rules or something. It's just that he didn't have it in him to be, he had also reached his high water mark, basically. And so when DK reorganized everything later, he left out a few disciples who were not perhaps up to it. And he had to have a certain number. 24 was the number, so he was strict about that as well.
What I find so amazing here is that here he had all these disciples. He gave them instructions. He gave them their rays. He told them what they had to work on, and they still didn't. So can you imagine how hard it is for us,
Yes.
who we have to arrive at our rays on our own. We have to recognize our own difficulty and work on our own cultivating qualities.
Yes.
And so how motivating it needs to be for us to move forward. And maybe that's why the world is in such a sorry state, But
Well,
seriously, we've got to be self-motivated and move ourselves to do this. No one can do it for us. Just like
it's a
in their
very good point,
cases,
yes.
no one could do it for them.
And of course, the work under the pressure of a master's attention is something that, while many would welcome it wouldn't be as easy as they think. So that was their particular cross to bear, their burden, his eye, Yes, quick question, yes.
The brain is given a ray attribute. Are we talking about the physical plane, the 3rd subplane of the physical plane is the brain? Or is the
etheric brain
3rd
to me-
subplane the mental plane? Where's the brain?
The brain is definitely on the physical plane.
Physical.
But it's the etheric aspect of it that seems most important. And then that will be a direct reflection. Some teachers divide the ray of the etheric body from the ray of the physical body. There's no justification in DK for that kind of division. It may be true that the ethers respond primarily to the 7th ray and the dense physical to the 3rd, but when he gave people their physical ray, he's just talking about one ray, and he's not dividing it etherically and physically. The etheric brain is the most important thing, and the rest is just an effect. Okay. All right. So now we will move forward.
Okay, I have 2 interesting ones for you. So the first one is Margaret Cobb, and her rays are 1st ray soul, 2nd ray personality, 4th ray mind, and 6th ray astral, and 1st ray physical. And physical 1st ray is, as we know, a little unusual, and it's not the typical ones. And her keywords are calm, assurance, and assurance is italicized, so that's the one to be stressed, and consecration. I'm going to give you a little summary of what her situation is, and then you can look for this as we read about this together. So what's going on here is her first ray soul is focusing through her ray 1 physical body and, importantly, brain. So think about that. The second ray personality is focusing through a ray 4 mind. And it is her astral body that is free in the sense of without this direct focus. So now let's read and learn a little bit about her. So he says, your soul ray, and he tells her right immediately, is the first ray of will or power, as it is also the ray of your physical body. Hence, if you so choose, comes the facility and ease with which your soul can impress your brain. So the soul has this direct path to the brain and the physical plane. This tends to make you very intuitive, though not at all psychic. So this is the key point here. Intuitive, but not psychic. It gives you, again, if you so choose, organizing power. And I have to see what this is. And there was a comment added about Ray 1 sees the big picture and can prioritize. Okay, that was added by us. So it gives you organizing power and the use of a dynamic spiritual will, which can carry you through and over all obstacles. This is sounding good. Use it, my brother, with greater frequency, and not on others, but on yourself, and in connection with anything you seek to do in the working out of the plan. So that's about where the soul ray focuses. The next one, your mental body, which has been said is on ray 2, which is the ray, your mental body, which is the ray, I'll just go on that because I have a comment I'll give later. Your mental body is on the fourth ray of harmony through conflict. And this, at times, upsets your balance and your equilibrium. Your desire for harmony sometimes produces short-sighted vision, and you tend to act precipitative. When this occurs, you later discover that you initiated conflict instead of having instituted harmony, as had been your original intention. But you can learn much thereby, because in the last analysis, the fourth ray governs humanity itself, as well as this planet, the Earth. Your fourth ray mind can always, therefore, put you in touch with the world of men and do it with greater safety than can your emotional nature. And again, the emotional nature is the sixth ray. This fact, coupled with the wisdom and love of your personality, should aid you greatly in the task of working with people, which is your chosen field of endeavor and expression. So to recap, the Ray 1 soul focuses through the Ray 1 physical body and brain. The Ray 2 personality focuses through a Ray 4 mind. And now the vehicle that was left alone, the astral body. Your astral body is, as I dare say you have suspected, upon the sixth ray of devotion. This gives you idealism, devotion to causes, your power to sacrifice, and your determination always to produce good out of seeming evil. This later characteristic is outstandingly yours. I would like to call to your attention that there is a lack found in your equipment of the modifications of the first ray line of energy. You have none of the forces of the 3, 5, or 7 rays in you at all. But balance is preserved through your first ray aspects. So, and this other that follows is just a recap. So this was a very interesting person who seemed to be doing pretty well in the work. And Michael, do you know much about Margaret?
I don't. Do you, Keith? A little bit?
I think she was English, and later on, DK just blew up at her because he got really pissed off with her Englishness.
Okay.
He sounded like John Cleese, you know, and he said, "You stuck-up, snobby British twit," you know, and all that kind of stuff.
Like that.
Yeah, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. It was never published, you know. I can see why.
Okay.
It was like very humorous moment, but somehow along the way, anyway, part of that first ray stuff, maybe as she crystallized, you know, tended to get in the way.
And I was wondering, there was one of those people on the first ray, I don't know if it was this one, maybe it was SCP or something, where he said, well, you're not doing as much for the war effort as even people who are not disciples.
Oh.
I'm not sure whether it was this one or the other, but he did say some very direct things.
Oh, very direct.
Yeah.
But also, you know, it's easy for us to sit here now in judgment of like, they had DK telling them all this and they didn't act on it, but the same would be true today, you know.
Yes, exactly.
It would be very true. So
Exactly.
I've seen again and again with things come very clear. And don't forget, he's seeing their internal potential from the angle of their soul, but he can't gauge how their personality will measure up to the challenge. It's
Exactly.
always the difficulty.
Exactly.
You see, because in terms of cooperating with that, we make those decisions and choices as a personality as to how much we will cooperate with the inner design. And he's putting his finger all the time on the blind spots. So we say, what's he talking about? I'm not like this, you know.
I
There's the rub.
I remember I had a talk with Mary Bailey once, and I don't know, I suppose maybe she was being humorous, but she did it with a deadpan face. She said, you know, she says, I think I was really stupid. Anyway, she said, I have a number of blind spots, and I'm aware of every one of them. And I said, oh, well, that's very good. And later I said, boy, she was sure putting me on there on that one. So no, I suppose we don't have all the pieces, but in these hints, we can find directives. If we would imagine that somehow in today's world, we would do better than these disciples have done, I don't necessarily think so. We have more information, and all the information has been gathered together for us. But after all, they were selected at a very difficult time, and they were going through World War II on top of it, you know. Maybe the next 12 years will tell the story, because we may have something equal to what they have gone through. Let us see.
Okay, so thank you. So the next disciple that I chose, Edna Cruz, I chose her because most of the time, and we're kind of going on this theory that frequently the soul will express through the vehicle that is the most refined. But this one is an exception to the rule, so listen carefully. Anyway, Edna has also a first ray soul.
No, not fourth ray soul.
What?
Not fourth ray soul, you said. Fourth ray soul, first ray soul. I'm sorry, it's just my ear.
Okay. A first ray soul, fifth ray personality, fourth ray mental body, second ray astral, and third ray physical. And her keywords were detachment being the most important, peace, and relaxation. Okay, I'm going to summarize her overview again, and then we'll go into the detail. So her soul energy first ray is focused through the astral body. And the personality force, fifth ray, is focused in the mental body, which is ray 4. And so it is her physical body which is free from this direct influence. So he says, it has been interesting to note how in your case, the fourth ray mental body, which is part of your equipment, has used its force in harmony far more often than in conflict, as in the effect in the majority of your brothers' lives. This is due to the first ray activity of your soul, which has resolved the conflict in harmony. Most of the conflict in your life has been the result of the activity of your astral body, working under second ray influence, with a reaction upon your third ray physical body. A close relation between the second and third rays often work out in difficulty, for they express two different ways of building. This is a good thing to note in general. And this I will take up in greater detail later. I would have you, however, ponder upon the following facts. Soul energy, ray 1, is for you focused in the astral body, ray 2. Personality force, ray 5, is focused in the mental body, ray 4. Your one way out of this is to be focused constantly in the soul, remembering that as you achieve this alignment and contact, the soul has its major point of contact with your personality via your astral body. This is for you a blessing, even when it constitutes a problem. Perhaps you will grasp what I'm seeking to convey to you if I say that this relation, ray 1 into 2, was established by the intelligent will of your soul, and this is the key part, in order to stiffen your astral reactions with the first ray energy and color them with the detached and isolated strength, which is the main characteristic of the first ray. The intent was to make you strong in what had been your weakest point. So here's an example where the soul is focusing there, not because it's the most refined vehicle, but because it is to bring that greatest uplift to the astral body and make it strong in what had been the weakest point. Detachment strongly felt in love, for forget not that the first ray is only the first subray of the great cosmic ray of love, is the factor which will bring release and understanding, not only to you, but to all around you. The aspect of devotion, which the astral body so easily expresses, must be transmuted into detached but selfless love. Remember that true love has sometimes to stand aside and look on peacefully, whilst others learn their lessons, a thing hard indeed for you to do, brother of mine. Your astral body has been governed by the second ray, and from certain points of view, this has been the most powerful influence in your personality equipment. It has been the balancing factor to the first ray line energy expressed by your soul, ray 1, and personality rays. It has linked you powerfully, and this should interest and cheer you, with the masters M and KH, who together form a definite unit of service in the work of the hierarchy at this time. And then let's go on down to now about the physical body. Your physical body is on the third ray of active intelligence. This has given you your capacity to work upon the physical plane, to handle money, though not in your own interests, and has tied you closely with the material life of the environment in a curiously symbolic manner. Ponder on this. So this was the vehicle that did not have personality or soul direct influence. Anyway, so I think Edna is quite interesting because here's an example where the soul influence was definitely to uplift and refine a vehicle that needed that strengthening. Okay, so any comments from those of you who...
Maybe someone could run this thing around. Over here? Gail? Was it, or who was it, Dorothy?
I was just wondering how they determined that the soul was working through the astral. Is that just...
He can see it.
There's
can see
no rule, he just...
No, he can see it. Because he said by intelligent choice, you know. So the soul has its own power to do that. This is not yet a... Do you have more on that, on her? No. Okay. This is... There's quite a story going on here when you look at her chart. It's not a rectified chart, but you can see something of importance, and I'll point it out, about attachment. Do you... Okay, excuse me. Okay, yes, go ahead.
I find it very interesting, he says, because earlier we were saying, determine your rays to what master you feel or ashram you feel attracted to. Here's an instance where he's saying these other rays are linking you to a first ray and a second ray masters, and that's...
He's just given a big hint to her about her monadic ray. That's what he's done.
Maybe.
Because basically, she's a fundamentally second-ray type. This is an obvious thing. And the monad has a direct relation to the astral body, especially when it's the same ray. And can you switch me over to the, over here? Here is her unrectified chart, but she does handle money. She got the Taurus rising. And she's a Pisces. Immediately the problem of attachment comes in. And she has a trine to Jupiter in Cancer, which the ruler of her Pisces sun. So this is giving all of these emotional things in relation to the family. And that's why she has to have this powerful first ray to come in, to not always be giving in to the people in her immediate environment. She's handled things for others. She's quite selfless, but she has, in this particular case, a vulnerability, I think, when it comes to her near ones. So the DK gives it the first ray in order to stiffen those outgoing astral reactions. So it's a very strong vehicle for her, reinforced by her sun sign. Obviously here, there would be a different story. But we're not getting into the astrological analysis of this too much, just to see she's got these water signs. And he's trying to throw in the first ray there to stiffen those reactions. Yes? Yes, go.
And yet the first ray soul doesn't change a lot. So she's been obviously having that first ray energy for a while.
Yes, but it seems that she's one of those people, because he seems to commend her for her quality when you start reading her instructions, that she's moving closer to the second ray. And that's why he's commending to her consideration the unit Moria and KH. So she was what, it's very interesting too. Eleanor was working on the chart for DLR, and he was a 15567. And behind it all is his love nature, his sensitivity. He's playing the violin, he's doing all kinds of things. He's a first ray soul. It's obvious second ray monad. So remember, from the time of the second initiation on, and some of these people were pretty close to that. You get the feeling that DLR was right there at that point of the second initiation. The influence from the sixth plane comes in. See, the astral body and the monadic plane are on 6 and 6. And so from that time on, it is possible to move into the ashram of a Chohan, and probably not before that, from the time of the second degree. So that monadic ray, however tenuous its influence, the love behind was beginning to come in. And I have a feeling that it's this way too. It's not insignificant. We're not making conscious contact with the monad until the third degree, but it is a pervasive influence. And in her case, it would really affect the astral body. Are there other further questions? Yes. Okay, Leslie. Okay, this is the only exercise I get for 3 weeks, so I rather enjoy this. Okay.
Could you please comment more on what he said here about the close relationship between the second and third rays being difficult?
Difficult,
right.
Yes, because there are different ways of building. I ought to be a one who should know about that. But you know, basically, it's the huge transition that's going on precisely on our planet and precisely in our solar system. It is the problem. On our particular planet, the third ray is out of adjustment in the Great Bear, and probably Nicholas has some theories about it, that there is a problem that even if you look at the way the Great Bear is configured from our perspective, it's as if the third ray star Alioth dips down too far. It's not in line with the arc of the handle of the bear. So that's just the symbol of the fact that somehow our immersion in materialism keeps us from merging into the quality of love, because we have this ignorant materialistic consciousness. And we're just busy, and we're preoccupied all the time with the material aspect. And the second ray is asking for detachment, contemplation, fusion, stepping back, all those things. So they have a very different kind of activity. You know, there's all this kind of centrifugal activity, running here and here, rush not from point to point, nor be deluded by the outer forms and that which disappears. Behind the form, the weaver stands, and silently he weaves. It's taking a long time to get into that kind of third ray position, which is, can help you make a transition into the stiller, the silence of the second ray. So these are out of adjustment on our planet, in our personality, and in the solar system as well, having trouble with the previous solar system and the legacy from that. So it's just activity aspect versus the stillness, silence, inclusion aspect. And there's just too much of Mayavic activity going on. That's my take on how we have a problem with those two rays. Sherry.
Thank you. You mentioned in the next 12 years we'll have a similar situation going on. Did you mean in terms of being disciples or in terms of the world situation?
Well, this is my anticipation that the next 12 years are a tremendous testing opportunity for humanity. They're the last 12 years of the forerunner. And then in 2025, DK says, basically, if all goes well, we will make the first plans for the externalization of the hierarchy, the first concrete plans. But as I've often said, and think it's true, that get ready to be tested over the next 12 years, because the world situation will force it upon us. You know, there's so much to be cleaned up, so much to be cleaned up. It's basically sharing, peace, and house cleaning. Those are the three things for the reappearance of the Christ. And it's not going to get easier over the next 12 years. It's going to get tougher and tougher and tougher, economically, in terms of war and conflict, and then in terms of all the Pluto stuff dragging it all to the surface so we all can see how horrible it really is and do something about it. So that's what I meant. There's a war going on the inner planes, and we're all part of it. Any other questions or thoughts about this process?
No. So thank you so much. I think we'll take a break now, and 15-minute, well, we can't do that because Michael wouldn't approve. 14 minutes.
That's the spirit. That's the spirit.
Okay, good.